All right, we are going to look at and review multiplying and dividing integers. So just to help you guys remember those rules, the first thing I'm going to do is show you with some pictures and some models to kind of help you understand why the rules are what they are. So if we have this number line, we're starting at 0, and you have a group there, another group, one more group, and one more group, and these are all equal. So from 0 to negative 2, negative 2 to negative 4, negative 4 to negative 6, and negative 6 to negative 8, those are all equal groups. So the first thing we see out there are 1, 2, 3, 4 groups. Or you can number it this way, 1, 2, 3, there's 4 groups. And in each group, there's not just 2, there's 2 negatives because we're going to the left. So if you have 4 groups, and in every group there's 2 negatives, we have a total of negative 8. And we can see that with the number line as well, because we landed right here at negative 8. So let's still think about that. If we had our total that we landed at negative 8, and we had 4 equal groups, well, how many were in each group was negative 2. So we can see with the representation that a positive times a negative results in a negative. A negative divided by a positive results in a negative. And we can see that with that picture. So let's try it another way. Well, if we have a total of negative 8, and in each group they were negative 2, 2 negatives in every group, that means we have 4 equal groups. So this means a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So this is going to help you guys out to remember the rules, and I have a mnemonic device, a little memory device to help you out with that as well. But I just wanted to remember that as well for you, okay? So let's look at this one. So we have some red dots here. So how many groups are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 groups, and in each group there are 2, but remember our red represents 2 negatives. So the red was negative on those counter shifts and the yellow was positive. So if I have 5 groups and in every group there's 2 negatives, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, but not just 10, it was 10 negatives. So if we take that again and we have our total of 10 negatives, and we divide it into 5 groups, how many are in each group? We have 2 negatives in every group. And another way to write that division is we can take our total of 10 negatives, and we can say, okay, well, I want 2 negatives in every group, so that would result in 5 groups. So a positive times a negative is a negative. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. All right, let's look at this last picture, and then I'm going to show you guys how we can do these skill problems. So how many groups are there? Well, depending on if you want to do with rows or with columns, depends on how you want to interpret. But normally, we're going to have it like horizontally. So let's say there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups. Okay? When they're shaded in, the shaded in boxes, and they'll always give you a key if needed, are going to represent negatives. If it was a unshaded box, that would represent a positive. Okay? And even though that key wasn't there, that's what I'm here for to tell you. So in each group, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 negatives. So if I have 4 negatives in 5 groups, I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I can visually see that there's not just 20, there are 20 negatives. So if I have the total of 20 negatives and I want to put 5 groups in each group, I have 4 negatives, and I can see that. If I have that total, another way for division is not to put into equal groups, but say, well, I want 4 negatives in each group. Well, that would result in 5 groups. So positive times a negative, negative. Negative times negative divided by a positive, negative. Negative divided by a negative is positive. So hopefully some of you guys remember this little device from last year. I call it the multiplying divided monkey face, or some people call it a bear, whatever you want to think about. And what this results in are these are only your rules for multiplying and dividing. Your rules are different with combining integers like we've already been talking about. So if you have a negative, here's how it works. If you have a negative times a positive, you cover up the negative sign times a positive. Whatever is left uncovered is the answer of your product. So we know that it's going to be a negative, whatever the numbers are. So any negative times a positive is a negative. Now I don't want to use yellow on here because it won't show up as much, so I'm going to use purple for their positive like I did in the other video. So if I have a negative divided by a positive, so if I say negative divided by a positive, I cover it up, and whatever's left uncovered is the sign of my result. Okay? So let's look over here. If I have a negative times a negative, well, what's left uncovered is the sign of my result. So that is going to be a positive. Oh, let me go back over here. I think it did a different color. Negative divided by a positive is negative. I'm going to keep that with my red. But our sign is still the same, just so my colors are correct. Now, but back over here, I have a negative divided by a negative, and that is also going to give me a positive. So if you guys understand how to use this tool, this strategy will help you guys out. So you could quickly draw this when you have a test or something like that so you know the rules. So this is what's going to happen every single time. So when you have your skill problems, and we'll just do a few together, and then you can get your practice. Negative 88, and then you do the math like normal. I forgot to say that part. Negative divided by a negative. So first, negative divided by a negative is going to result in a positive. Then you just do the math like normal. 88 divided by 8 is 11. This is where you have to be careful because sometimes you go too quick and the number was right, but your sign was wrong. So really and truly the number wasn't right. So if this were a test question, negative 11 would be a trick answer, just to make sure you're paying attention. So now we have a negative 11 times a positive 4, so that means my answer is going to be negative. I like to find the sign of the answer first and then do my math. 11 times 4 is 44. So 4 groups of 11 negatives would result in 44 negatives. Okay, let's try 2 more. 50, positive 50, divided by negative 5. Well, your sign is going to be negative, and then you do your math like normal. 50 divided by 5 is 10. And think about that with the pictures. If you had this where we drew it out, we would see, and it looks a little bit different with that, but a positive divided by a negative is a negative. Okay? All right, so then we have negative 64 divided by negative 8. Negative 64 divided by negative 8 is going to result in a positive. So then we do the math like normal. 64 divided by 8 is 8. So once you get the hang of this, it's not too bad, but what we just need to be careful on is making sure that we're using this only for multiplying and dividing. That's why the little monkey or bear or whatever you want to call it, that's why we only have the multiplying and dividing. Now some people say, well, why isn't there another positive with this? Because positive times positive, or positive divided by positive is always positive. Basically, if the signs are the same, it's positive. If it's one of each, we can see it's negative. And the little, this is its face because these are its eyes and that's supposed to be its mouth. That's why it's supposed to be a little face. All right, so hopefully this video helps you out with both the rules and the mnemonic device to help you, as well as with the pictures. Good luck.